Stay tuned because we're talking about step parenting next on Fathers Are Parents Too. Welcome to Fathers Are Parents Too. We're here this week with Kim Matthews, and Kim is a regional representative for the Step Parenting Association, which is a national organization headquartered in Lincoln, Nebraska. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on the show. Tell me, what is the Step Parenting Association and why do we have a need for it?
Step Family Association is a national nonprofit organization, and the reason there's a need for it is because there, as probably most people know, 50% of the marriages wind up in divorce, which creates remarriage, and there's a need for support and education for people that are remarrying, dealing with the issues that you go through with having children and from a previous marriage.
So now what are some of these issues? Because isn't it sort of you meet someone, you fall in love, and happily ever after?
Don't we wish? Most of the issues are surrounded around maybe discipline and how the couples find time, how you blend the step family together, and things like that.
Okay. So now I think I read something in some of your material that said something like 40% of all, was it all new marriages, one partner will have been married or in a relationship previously. Is that accurate? That's a very high percentage, so
Yeah.
I can see where there'd be a real need for support. Do you have beyond the national organization, you have local everywhere? Or?
Right. There's 43 active chapters across the United States, and they provide speakers, support groups, classes, workshops. They all vary.
Okay, now what do you do with this organization? Do you run meetings, or?
I don't personally anymore, but I'm a regional representative of Northern California that oversees the chapters in my area. I try to support the chapter leaders and facilitators. I also put out a newsletter every other month that provides information of any classes or workshops that are going on and support groups.
Okay, so now these workshops, and then you have meetings, these local coordinators do meetings.
Right.
Is there sort of a typical step parent or step family that would come to you? What do they look like in terms of the reasons they're coming to you?
That's a good question, because usually I'll get the call from the contact phone number, and usually it's for preventative maintenance. They want to find out what they can do to help blend the children together smoothly, and some of the issues are I'm stuck. Help me out here.
Well, actually, I'm wondering, when you say to smooth things over with the children, I would think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't it be the case really that a lot of the issues really aren't the children's issues? I mean, children are so, to some extent, flexible and sort of happy as long as they're being well cared for to some extent, and I'm wondering, isn't it really the parents and the step parents, and what are there sort of typical issues in that?
I think a lot of times the step parent may feel isolated, or what happens is that there's a bond between the biological parent and the children already, that the step parent, it's going to take a long time to form, so they feel isolated and need help on how to deal with that. Now
I know a lot of times what I hear from both step parents and also from older children who have a step parent is that there's this sort of almost a need, a push to almost force that bond. Not force the bond, but you know, I may hear a child say, well, they insist that I call her mom or him dad, and the step parent is sort of insisting, well, I want respect as a parent, and it seems like that's kind of rigid and often doesn't work. And what do you advise? Do you advise about that? And if so, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think I'm a stepmom myself, and there is a truth to that, is that step parents a lot of times will come on too strong, try too hard, and I think what we encourage is for them to just slow down and take time to build a relationship with the kids, and for the biological parent to do more of the disciplining, but help kind of facilitate the relationship and the friendship, a bond between the step parent and the children, but to go slow.
So it sounds like what you're saying is the biological parent in the home should still do most of the parenting at
Right,
first. Is that
exactly.
right? And let the step parent become a respected adult
Exactly.
friend first. And is there a point where they will gradually take on some of the parenting
Yeah.
responsibilities as well?
Yeah, and that the biological parent will facilitate that and let the children know that we're partners in this together, and we've talked about it, and we're on the same lines. She knows what I expect, or he knows what I expect, and we'll work on this together. And I would expect the kids to respect, or they will expect the kids to respect that somewhat. There's got to be some give and take with that.
Okay, now let's talk about what I think is probably one of the really hard issues, which is if you're a step parent, that means, for the most part, there is an analogous parent in another house. If you're a stepmom, there's a mom somewhere. If you're a stepdad, there's a dad somewhere. And I know that there is a lot of tension that comes into that. And I often have talked to dads who have second spouses, new wives, stepmoms, who refer to the dad's ex as my ex-wife.
Right.
Because you really do. You inherit another family, and you inherit an ex, and you inherit all that baggage, and you inherit that already existing relationship, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on there that I think is very difficult to deal with. And what advice do you give to people who are suddenly plonk, here I am in Never Never Land, and it's not what I thought, and I have this ex-person to deal with, and I don't want them in my life, and I want them out, and how do I deal with that? That's got to be really hard.
Yeah, it is real hard, and I think the step parent needs to realize that they don't have control over too much over that situation. They can. There's got to be respect. There's got to be boundaries that the new couple can set. But as far as dealing with the children, that spouse is always going to be there, and that relationship is never going to go away. That is their mother. That is their father, and that's not going to change. The step parent should work on building their own relationship and their own role in the kid's life.
Now, what about building a relationship with the other parent? Is that possible, do you think?
Sometimes I think as long as it can be respectful. I don't think it should be forced.
No.
It should be maybe a good business relationship, and some couples are lucky where there is a friendship. So I think that's great for the kids. That's what the kids need to. It makes them feel more relaxed, that they don't have to be careful what they say or do. They should be able to talk about their other household, things like that.
Do you ever hear people talk about also just developing an empathy for the other person? And what I mean by that is I'm thinking now actually of a particular couple that I know. And at one point I heard the step parent say, I never thought about this, but it must be really hard for her because now she must be worried, that I'm going to try and take her place. And I have to imagine that some of that tension is, it goes both ways. And it's, for as frustrating as it may be for the new spouse, I'm wondering if they sort of ever get that it's got to be equally concerning and maybe even frightening for the other parent. And
I think it would be helpful for the step parent to maybe try to put themselves in the parent's shoes that isn't present. If they're married to their husband that has the kids, try to put yourself in the biological mother's position and see what that feels like, and how you would react and what you would be thinking of. And I think you'd be a lot more understanding and be able to relate with the kids a lot better in that respect.
So now these are a lot of issues and a lot of concerns and a lot of things to think about. What does your organization offer to people in this situation to help them learn to deal with these things? You mentioned workshops that you might talk about.
We have a catalog of resources that has a list of a lot of great books. One in particular is called Step Families Stepping Ahead.
Okay. Oh, actually, you brought that with you,
right,
didn't you?
I
So
did.
it's this book right here.
Right, that's included in the membership.
Okay.
And the other thing, as far as the support groups go, there are some that meet just monthly. There are some that meet twice a month. And it gives you a safe forum to express some of the things that are going on and listen to other people's experiences and gain some knowledge from that. And it's solution oriented. It's not there to gripe and badger the other person. So.
Now, without getting too personal, or I don't mean to pry, so get only as personal as you want to, if you want to, but can you sort of relate from a personal level what, you know, how you got involved with this and how, if it's changed things for you? I would have to assume it did because you're involved with the organization, but that might be helpful to get that personal perspective.
I met my husband about 10, 11 years ago, and he had custody of his 2 boys at the time that were about 6, 7, 7, 8, somewhere around in that.
Which is quite unusual, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
And they saw their mom regularly. But I think what happened, I grew up in a step family, and I had that role model of how we conducted our step family. And I came on, I think, real strong. I tried to help my husband take over some of the duties that a mother would do. And I had expressed to the kids and their mom that I wasn't trying to take over being their mother, but what my words said and what my actions said were 2 different things. And it took me a long time to see that. There came a point where I became real frustrated, and the boys became frustrated. There was a lot of tension in the family.
Let me just stop for a second. I'm curious. You said that your actions were different than your words. Did you know that? I'm guessing that when you said those words, you really meant them.
I meant them, but I didn't know till years later, looking back in retrospect, that that's not what my actions were showing. So it caused a lot of tension. I was trying too hard. And as a result, I tried to seek out some type of support. And after quite a few phone calls, found the Step Family Association and started attending support groups.
And how did that change things for you? What happened?
This is the way I explain it, is that I think life is just a big roller coaster of a lot of ups and downs, but getting some support and educating myself, what I decided was that I needed to just calm down, and it smoothed things out. I didn't react so volatilely to all the situations that were actually normal in a family, and I didn't really understand that.
I think, and we talked about this a little before the show, there's sort of an idea on some people's parts as they enter as a step parent that they're going to make everything better, and they're going to be the new improved, you know, sort of new improved wife, new improved mom or husband, and that's sort of like trying to be a super person when you can't possibly be. Now, did the change that you felt yourself go through, were you able to see that affect your family? Did it have an impact on?
Yeah. I think I walked in there thinking I was going to be the savior and make up for some of the disappointments or hurts that they were going through. And really that wasn't my position to do that. And it took me a while to understand that the best thing I could have done for them was to go slow and build a relationship with them. But as an adult figure, not just a friendship, but I also had to take on a parenting role.
Right. So now that would be one, I hate to use the word mistake, but sort of classic maybe misperception or sort of expectation that may not be met that a parent, a future step parent may have. Is that sort of the most common? Is there a theme you see to these parents coming in? What do they all have sort of certain symptoms or certain expectations that need to be addressed?
I think so, yeah. It's real common for a new couple to get together and think that the love is going to just, the couple loves each other, so obviously the kids were all going to love each other and be one big happy family.
One Brady Bunch, sort
right,
of.
Exactly. That was probably the only role model picture that we had to go by.
The most damaging
exactly. It sets up, the expectations are way too high.
Which isn't to say, I love the Brady Bunch, but you know, that really, it was not
I watched
realistic.
It too.
It wasn't a realistic role model.
Right.
What other sorts of misperceptions and expectations do you
Probably
see?
also that the kids are going to get along right off the bat, and that takes some working to do. Also, that getting along with the ex-spouses, or maybe you expect you're not going to get along with them, and that might change for you. You might get along with them.
So you sort of expect them to be the enemy or
right,
a
that
monster
wicked
with
stepmother picture, or, you know.
Okay, I have one other question, and then we're going to go to a break, and then we'll come back and take some questions from the audience. But I am wondering if you can tell me, when someone's just entering a relationship like this, and as you said, you may have expectations of the ex, and you may not. We talked also earlier before the show about if it's not broke, don't fix it. But when you go in there, you have this vision, this image that it must be broke, and it's because of those expectations. So is there advice you give people when they're first looking at that relationship, the parent, mother-father, natural mother-father relationship, with an expectation of how it should be, and they see it's not working the way they think it should, or they're frustrated, or they want to sort of basically get in there and say, what are you doing? Why don't you tell her this? What do you tell people with that impulse? Because I know a lot of people have that impulse. They say, oh, how are you, why are you letting her do this or him do this?
I still do that even after 9 years of marriage, and that's something that I work at too, that I think mostly what I would say is to just slow down and develop a relationship with the kids. Take some one-on-one time with the kids, and have one-on-one couple time, and develop the relationship first before you try to be a parent to them. So that would be one of the biggest pieces of information.
And it sounds like naturally flowing from that then would be you're focusing on what's going on in your home and letting go of trying to impact the home-to-home communication, parent-to-parent.
Right.
That's good advice.
Take one step at a time. Maybe instead of trying to fix the whole picture or make the whole thing mesh together,
And
just
fit
take
your
it
image
slow.
of how it should
Right.
be. Okay, we're going to take a break and then we'll come back to some questions.
Great.
We'll be right back after this.
I'd like to talk to you about divorce. Not what it means to you as a parent, but what it means to your children, coming from someone whose parents are divorced. Some divorced parents feel the need to involve their children in disagreements by putting the other parent down. If you're a parent, step-parent, girlfriend, or boyfriend of someone who is involved in a divorce, please don't involve the children in the issue. It's a terrible feeling for someone to hear negative things about the other parent, no matter how old they are or how true or insignificant you feel the comment is. You also have to know that the effects of trying to cut the other parent out of your children's life are even more devastating. FREE, the Father's Rights and Equality Exchange, is an organization that firmly believes in having both parents in your child's life. For more information, call 1-500-4DADS. I'm lucky in the fact that my mother has never interfered with my father's relationship. In fact, she's always encouraged me to stay involved with him. But coming from someone who's been through a divorce with my parents, I realized that by giving comments to your children that are negative about the other parent, it will only cause them to resent you. My parents may not always agree with each other, but I know I'm glad to have both of them in my life, and your kids will be too. Right, Mom?
Right. Welcome back to Fathers Are Parents Too. We're here today with Kim Matthews, who is a regional representative with the Step Family Association of America, and we have some questions from the audience for Kim. Yes.
Yes, Kim, could you tell us a little bit more about the organization, how old it is, how to contact it, how to join, how much does it cost, what do the meetings look like, how many members do you have?
Sure. The organization was started by Emily Vischer and her husband John in 1979 in Palo Alto, and it has now moved. The national headquarters is now in Lincoln, Nebraska. The 800 number is how you can get a hold of them, which they put on the screen, but it's 1-800-735-0329. And the meetings, there's monthly meetings or twice a month. It depends on what area. And usually couples will come and there might be a topic that evening. They might have a speaker. But what happens is that everybody will get a chance to go ahead and discuss maybe what's happening since the last time they met, if there's any real issues that need to be brought up. And people just kind of share what's going on in their lives. The membership, though, to get back to that, costs $35 a year, and what's included with that is a book called Step Family Stepping Ahead that the association puts out.
It's right here. Lovely book.
Thank you. And then a quarterly newsletter that the association puts out with a lot of great maybe legal advice and book suggestions, columns that people write in about issues that are happening in their family. So those are some of the things, and people will go buy the book sometimes for meeting ideas. So.
Now I noticed actually on the back of the book it looks like the Vischer, are they a husband and wife team that founded it? Do you happen to know what's their story? Why?
Oh, they have a large family when they marry. I don't know the dynamics of what happened, but I know they came together with a very large family. And they're in the mental health profession, and Emily recognized the fact that there was no role models or no guidance to go by for
So
step
they
families.
also were a blended family,
Right.
and they know where from they speak.
Right.
That's great that they did that.
Yeah.
We have another question for you.
Sure.
Yes.
Hi, Kim. A lot of the groups that support families, regardless of whether they're step families or free or divorce support groups, everything seems geared to adults, and I think that's partly because adults have this responsibility, but it's also partly because adults are not very adaptable. I think that that's something that we need to recognize. I'm curious about what you do for children. I am a parent who is infinitely tired of hearing how adaptable children are, and not hearing anything about the incredible price that they pay for that adaptability. I recently went to my child's elementary school to drop by and say hello. I could see that she had a lot of feelings going on and needed to cry. I took her outside and held her and let her cry for nearly a half an hour. When she was okay, a little upset when she went back in. I was criticized by the principal of the school for disrupting the class and disrupting my child's serenity, when in fact I was the only place of safety that was available for that child. People seem to think that children are happy if they're quiet. I'm interested in what you're doing, and I'm also interested in what Free is doing that's geared toward children.
Yeah, that's a really great point. The association has some books and some tapes that are geared for children, some workbooks that they can express some of their feelings. As far as meetings go, it varies what the areas have to offer. I know in particular this area, Palo Alto, has a workshop going on sometimes geared for kids. It's not run consistently, and I think part of the challenge for that is that there needs to be a professional that runs that group. It's not something that you can just run like adults. They can maintain themselves and keep on track, but kids really need some professional guidance with their groups and workshops.
Now, what about with respect to for the kids but geared towards the adults, which is sort of the middle stance there? And what I mean by that is, do you have advice or resources for the parents to get a handle on what's going on for their kids? Not how to deal with them, but to really understand, as this gentleman mentioned, obviously his daughter was experiencing some real distress, and but what he was hearing from everybody was, oh, kids are flexible and adaptable, and obviously that's not what he needed to hear. He needed to really be able to get some advice and guidance as to how to best assist his daughter, I think. What do you offer any resources, or do you know of any resources for parents in that situation?
Out of all the list of books that we have, I'm not familiar with all the details of them, but I would really encourage parents to talk with the school, and we need to educate the schools and other parents too, because the kids do need a safe place to go. And the schools, I think, are uneducated about how to handle it.
I think that's true, and I also think that they're often put in the position of actually being gatekeepers. I know a lot of fathers, for example, being non-custodial parents, who actually meet with resistance at schools when they want to come in and find out what's going on with their child, because the school believes they'll be liable if he takes the child off the premises.
Right.
So I think you're right, that really does need to be addressed. We have time for one more question, and we happen to have one. Yes.
I heard you talking about the difficulties a step-parent has stepping into a family that really previously exists and becoming part of it under optimal circumstances. But have you ever seen a case where the real parent in the other household is purposely or subconsciously torpedoing a relationship with the stepchildren? Things like, you don't have to listen to her, she's not your real mom, I'm the one you have to listen to, or even just making less than kind comments about the step-parent and therefore undermining any respect that could be built.
Yeah, I think unfortunately that happens often, and I think the association really encourages the couple to not badmouth the other parent. And you don't have control over what that other household says. You can ask for respect and boundaries. That doesn't mean that they're going to go ahead and respect that, though. The best that you can do is communicate a positive forum and a safe place for them to express what they're going through, but not to badmouth the other parent. And maybe discuss it as adults between each other and not while the kids are present. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Is there anything that you advise people to do to sort of help themselves get to that position where they can, as you said, discuss it as adults? Sometimes that's very hard, particularly if you're talking between divorced parents or new step-parent and ex-spouse. And are there any words of wisdom that you or the association or any of your resources have that you can share as to how to get yourself to that place where you can stop just getting all wrought up every time you think of the other person and instead communicate with them?
Yeah, I think it's real important to have a couple time together and be away maybe from the home and discuss some issues in that way, but also to seek out support, go to step family support groups or other organizations that hold support groups that pertain to the issues. And if they need personal one-on-one counseling, maybe to seek that out, but to read some books, educate themselves. We have a lot of great books to pick from.
Now, what about if someone were in an area where there were not a chapter? Is it fairly easy, or is it difficult for someone who might want to start a chapter in their area? What would they do?
It's not difficult, but it does take a commitment of time. And what they would do is call the association and become a member of the organization, and then they would purchase a chapter startup kit. And then if it were in the California area, I would be in correspondence with them on the phone, or possibly be able to go there and help them start.
And get that started.
Yeah, there's manuals in the startup kit that give them ideas on how to go about that.
That's wonderful. And if we could run that number again, the number that they would call should appear on the screen. It's a national 800 number, and there's the number. It's 800-735...
0329.
Great. Well, Kim, thank you so very much for being here. We really appreciate your being here. This is a very important area and one that we feel quite strongly about. Will you come back sometime?
Sure. Thank you for having me.
And thank you, audience, for being here. And we'll be talking again next time on Fathers Are Parents Too. I just wrapped that up early.